Last night we used mental math to multiply. Tonight we're going to take that skill and take it to the next level, where we estimate products. Now this is almost exactly like what we did when we estimated sums and differences, but this time we're using multiplication. So let's say, for instance, we have 59 and 19 as our factors, and we want to find an estimated product. The best case would be to round one or both of the factors, in this case to the nearest 10. Obviously 59 is closer to 60 than it is to 50, and 19 would round up to 20. In this case, we rounded both factors up, so we are finding what's called an overestimate. Taking last night's skill, our basic fact obviously is 6 times 2 equals 12. And we have 2 zeros in both factors combined, so our product will also have 2 zeros. So the estimated product of 59 and 19 would be 1,200. And this is what we call an overestimate. When finding an estimated product, sometimes you'll also use what's called an underestimate. In this example, we are going to have as our factors 547 and 51. The 51, clearly I'm going to want to round to the nearest 10, which rounds down to 50. 547, I'm going to round to the nearest 100. The reason I rounded this to the nearest 100 instead of to the nearest 10 is because I want to be able to do this mentally. I want to be able to do this quickly and efficiently. And using yesterday's skill, this matches perfectly. In both of these factors, I rounded down. So I know that my estimate is going to be an underestimate, okay? Because it's going to be much lower than the real product. Taking our skill from yesterday, our basic fact is 5 times 5 is 25. Going back to my factors, I have 1, 2, 3 zeros. My product will also have 1, 2, 3 zeros. And the proper placement of the comma, starting from the right, 1, 2, 3, would be here. My estimated product of 547 times 51 would be 25,000. Another strategy often found when finding an estimated product is that of using compatible numbers. And remember, compatible numbers, when you use this strategy, you don't necessarily follow the strict rules of rounding. You could get a little creative. For example, if I needed to find the estimated product of 39 and 24, I could get a little creative and say, well, logically, 39 rounds to 40. And I notice that 24 is very close to 25. And I've known since first grade that 4 quarters equal $1, and therefore 4 25s equal 100. So I might get a little creative and say, I want my 24, instead of rounding down to 20, to become 25. Because I know that my basic fact, 4 times 25, equals 100. I have 1 0 in my factors combined, so my product will have 1 0 as well, added on, and that would give me an estimated product of 1,000 using compatible numbers. If I decided to follow the strict rules of rounding, well then clearly I would round 39 to 40, 24 to 20, my basic fact is 4 times 2 equals 8. 2 zeros, 2 zeros. So using rounding, I could get an estimated product of 800. Using compatible numbers, it would be 1,000. Now it's your turn to try. Find the estimated product of 128 and 32 using rounding or compatible numbers. Pause the video, solve, and unpause to check. Okay, in my opinion, the best bet for this would be to do 100 times 30. Clearly this is an underestimate because in both cases I rounded down. My basic fact, my non-zero digits, 1 and 3 times equals 3. 1, 2, 3 zeros in my factors, 1, 2, 3 zeros in my final product. In my opinion, 3,000 would be your best estimate of 128 times 32. Now, is that the only way to do it? Absolutely not. Some more advanced thinkers might look at it this way and say, well, why don't I round each of the factors to the nearest 10? If that was the case, 128 would round to 130. 32 would still round down to 30. Then you could see in your digits that are not 0, you have 13 times 3. Well, in my opinion, that's very doable to do mentally. Be 39. We have 2 zeros in the factors combined. 2 zeros will then be placed in our final product. And doing it this way, we have an answer, a product of 3,900. Now, determining whether this is an underestimate or overestimate could be on the more challenging side, because as you could see, with one of the factors, we rounded up, and the other factor, we rounded down. So in that case, if you are asked to decide if it's an under or overestimate, your best course of action would be to solve the basic equation, find the accurate answer, and then you could compare. And in this case, 3,900 is still an underestimate. Try 2 more, see how you do. Pause the video. For each number sentence, find the estimated product and unpause when you're ready to check. In the first number sentence, I'm going to round that to the nearest 1,000. Second factor, I'm going to round to the nearest 100. I'm going to look at my digits that are not zeros. That will tell me my basic fact. 9 times 7 equals 63. Now I'm going to count up my zeros and my factors combined. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to make sure that I carry over that same number of zeros into my final product. Now it's just a matter of placing my commas. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And now I'm going to do the same thing for the second number sentence. In this case, I think again I'm going to round the 3-digit number to the nearest 100, the 2-digit number to the nearest 10. And this happens from time to time where you have a basic fact that already has a 0 in it, because obviously the product of 5 and 4 is 20. That already has a 0 in it, okay? And that needs to stay. I'm going to count the other zeros in both factors combined, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to need to make sure I add them, okay? And when you're checking your work, as you always do, you will notice that here we have 4 zeros, here we have 3, but that's okay because the basic fact already had that 0. And of course, this also works when you're multiplying numbers that have mixed numbers in them, in decimals. So in this case, if I wanted to multiply the factors 192 and 13.4, I would probably look at the 192 and logically round that up to the nearest 100, giving me 200. And 13.4 round down to 13, rounding that to the nearest whole number. Now logically, this is easy to do, even though you wouldn't consider it a basic fact. Multiplying anything by 2 is a piece of cake. So of course the basic fact would be 2 times 13 equals 26. 1, 2 zeros in my factors combined, 1, 2 zeros in my product, place my decimal point, my estimated product would be 2,600. Now you try this example. Pause the video while you work and unpause when you're ready to check your answer. Most people in this case would look at that second factor, 8.4, and round down to 8. You could also use compatible numbers and round it to 10, because we know that multiplying anything by 10 tends to be on the easier side. So looking at my first factor, 1,892, I'm going to try to be as specific as possible in my answer. And this one I might wind up rounding to the nearest 100, which would give me 1,900. Now in this case, the trick for multiplying anything by 10 is taking that number and adding a 0 to the right side of it. You could do that, which would be 1900, our first factor, and then add the 0. Keeping with our strategy that we've been using all night, also, this works. Basic fact, 19 times 1, following the identity property of multiplication, is 19. 1, 2, 3 zeros in the factor, 1, 2, 3 digits, in the product. Pause your video while you work, unpause to check your answer. Okay, your easiest course of action here would be to round to your largest digit, your digit that has the largest value, In both cases, that would be rounding to the nearest 10. 89.7, of course, rounds up to 90. 13.3 rounds down to 13. Now, this might not be something that you can do mentally. If that's the case, you can make things a little bit easier for yourself and perhaps round this to 100, still multiplying by 13, which would give you an estimated product of 1,300. Those of you who could manage this, well, it's as easy as doing 9 times 10 is 90. 9 times 3 is 27. Add that 90 plus 27 and get 117. Put the 0 at the end. And either one of these estimated products would be acceptable.